refer to. Were there other factors influencing your decision to move into the UK?
The UK market is English speaking. It has a transparent, legal, regulatory and tax framework. And the products and distribution are very, very similar to most Western products and distribution channels. We're familiar with those, so it makes it a lot easier for us to enter the market. Secondly, the distribution channels, the banks and other financial institutions are familiar with Oasis. We operate in a European framework with the funds being registered in Ireland and has been approved for distribution throughout Europe for the last 10 years. What we're now doing is getting the funds registered for marketing and available to be bought in the UK, and I think that gives us a significant advantage. Importantly, Oasis has had 13 years experience in the Sharia market and 10 years experience in global wealth management.
Adam, please tell us about the Oasis products you're looking to launch in the United Kingdom. What do UK Muslim investors have to look forward to?
We will launch with the first three products: the Oasis Crescent Global Equity Fund, the Oasis Crescent Global Property Equity Fund, and the Oasis Crescent Global Income Fund. Those products are European Union approved and have an outstanding track record. In fact, the longest standing fund, the Crescent Global Equity Fund, firstly, those funds are AA rated by Standard & Poor's for the last 5 years. And secondly, the fund has been rated the best performing Sharia compliant global equity fund by Armani Falaika for the last 5 years. We look forward, inshallah, to the fund achieving a 10-year track record at the end of November. And we think we stand a very, very good chance of being rated the top performing fund over the last 10 years. What that brings is a significant track record that is 10 years long. Secondly, we have had consistency and outstanding performance, and we have operated in a European framework. And so what you're buying is a global leading product provided with a market leader in Sharia finance and who understands the European framework.
Those are the initial products that you're looking to launch into the UK market. Are there further plans to introduce newer products that can cater for different risk profiles and objectives in the UK?
Sure. Those are the building block products. And over the next 6 to 12 months, we will be launching a range of lifestyle products, a balanced fund product. So we'll be launching a low equity, medium equity, and high equity, or alternatively, a low risk, a moderate risk, and a high risk product range of global funds that will have equities, property, and income alternatives with different ratios. And those products will be well suited in meeting the risk-reward relationships for every segment of the savings market. And then finally, we'll be launching an Africa fund, which, you know, Africa is part of the emerging markets. It's a high growth area where long-term growth rates are between 4% and 6%. And it provides a great alternative to diversifying portfolios.
Could you touch on the characteristics and attributes of the Oasis Crescent Global Equity Fund?
The Oasis Crescent Global Equity Fund is a global equity fund. And as an equity fund, you know, if you look at the attributes of the returns, approximately 20% of the return would come from income, and that is very stable and consistent and predictable. And 80% of the return will come from capital growth, and that is volatile and less predictable. But if you take the two together, you're getting higher risk, higher volatility, but substantially higher returns. And it's the best inflation hedge over time. Okay? So what you have is a fund, an equity fund, that gives you exposure to some of the best companies around the world, global market leaders that are very attractively priced. Secondly, it gives you exposure to many, many industries around the world. And finally, it also gives you geographical diversification. So long term, the best asset class, if you've got a 10 and 20-year time horizon, most probably going to give you the best risk-reward relationship.
You also mentioned the Oasis Crescent Global Property Equity Fund. What are the unique characteristics of this particular fund?
The Crescent Global Property Equity Fund is a property equity fund giving you exposure to well-diversified property markets. Secondly, the product profile and the return profile, 50% of the return comes from income, which is more predictable, and 50% of return comes from capital, which is less predictable. So if you take the two together, you'll get a moderate exposure to the office market, the retail market, the industrial market, and the healthcare market, amongst others, over many, many countries as far west as the US and Canada, into Europe like the UK and Germany, and in the Far East, Australia, Singapore, Malaysia. So it's very, very well diversified, and it's a moderate risk profile.
And then finally, the Oasis Crescent Global Income Fund.
The Oasis Crescent Global Income Fund is an income fund where the total return, 80 to 90% of the total return comes from income, which is more stable, and only 10 to 20% comes from capital growth, which is more volatile. So if you take the two together, it is actually a low-risk alternative with a high income component and a low capital component. The short end is exposed to the Murabaha markets, and the long end is exposed to the Sukuk market, which are really asset-based instruments, and you're getting the income flow out of a toll road or a power station, amongst others, which is regulated often and has a consistent and predictable income flow. It's over many, many countries, so it's again well diversified. So it's a low risk, high income generating, low capital growth product.
Adam, you mentioned the balanced range of products or the lifestyle range of products. Please will you elaborate on this?
The lifestyle range of products that we'll be launching shortly is a very, very important element in helping investors take a long-term view, take control of the investment decision with a very simple product. And I'm just going to explain that to you. Firstly, when you're in your wealth creation phase of your life, from 1 to 50, so 0 to 50 effectively, you're earning an income and you need to save for the long term because you've got a long time horizon. And that will give you an exposure to a high risk, high return, progressive balance fund. So it will have a higher exposure to equities, property, and a lower exposure to the lower risk, lower return income side. Now that will give you 3 to 5% returns above inflation over time. The second part of your life is in your wealth preservation part of your life, between 50 and 60. You have a shorter time horizon, but still quite long, and so you should have a moderate risk profile. So you would have a moderate equity exposure, a moderate property exposure, and now you start increasing the income component. So that will give you a medium risk profile and a medium return profile. And then importantly, we all get to that age where we stop working and we have to live off the income. So we're in the harvesting part of our lives. We have to harvest from and live off the returns of our investments. That is when we need a lower risk profile, so lower equity and lower property exposure, but a higher income exposure. Importantly, remember, if you retire at the age of 60, and if you take the life expectancy tables, you may have anything from 20 to 30 years, or even 40 years if you're in Japan, to live. So at that point in time, you cannot have all your eggs in the low income product range. You actually have to have a volume and wealth and inflation beating assets, which is equities and property. So if you take those very simple principles, 0 to 50, go into a higher risk product, 50 to 60, a medium risk product, and above 60, a lower risk product. It makes it simple and easy for ordinary people to understand.
In one of your earlier comments, you talked about the Emerging Market Africa Fund. Can you elaborate on this?
The Oasis Crescent Africa Fund gives you an exposure to emerging markets. Secondly, Africa is a high growth area with growth rates of anything from 5 to 6%. Thirdly, Africa's got an exposure to commodities like oil, gold, iron ore, copper, and those are items that has a high exposure to growth rates in China. Now, normally we talk about competition from China pulling prices down, but the Chinese need commodities like oil and gold and platinum, and Africa's got abundance of that. So in a unique way, by investing in Africa, you're investing in the growth potential not only of Africa, but of in emerging markets like China, India, Indonesia, and so it gives you a really great risk-return profile, much higher returns, and I don't think a lot higher risk.
How can UK investors be ensured of the safety of their money and the integrity of the Oasis products they will be investing in?
Oasis has a track record of excellence, operating in regulated, transparent, liquid products and markets with daily pricing. Secondly, Oasis operates in the EU framework for the last 10 years. BNP Paribas are our external custodians. We have an independent board of non-executive directors. And finally, we have a highly respected Sharia board with some of the most prominent members of the Sharia-compliant industry representing and looking after our investors' interests.
Adam, should investors wish to purchase any of the funds in the Oasis Crescent Global range, how could they go about doing so?
We're in the process of getting the funds registered with the FSA in the UK. We anticipate that the registration will happen in the next couple of weeks, so the funds will be available for sale within a couple of weeks, maximum a month. Secondly, you can buy those funds directly from our Irish subsidiary, the Oasis Global Management Company Ireland. Thirdly, you can buy the funds through some very prominent wealth management platforms like Goldman Sachs, Citibank, and Bank Santander. It's all funds. You can get the funds in future through banks like Islamic Bank of Britain, Habib Bank, which we're working on in that relationship with independent financial advisors and also other insurance companies. So over the next 2 to 3 years, the distribution in the UK will be very deep and accessibility will be quite easy, and the availability of the product, you know, we will build a brand, we'll get the products made available very deeply and very broadly over the next while.
In order to contact Oasis for more information about their products and details on how to purchase these products in the United Kingdom, please email ifauk@oasiscrescent.com or call Oasis Global Management Company in Ireland on +353.
Discover your hidden treasure within Oasis, an authorized financial services provider, a formidable global force in Sharia-compliant investment management. With our wealth of knowledge and expertise, we have received numerous awards across the globe for our excellence and innovation in Islamic finance. Everything we do is based on detailed and thorough research. Why don't you join the Oasis? Discover your hidden treasure. Oasis has just launched 3 Sharia-compliant balance funds for the 3 stages of your life cycle: Oasis Crescent Balance High Equity, Progressive and Stable funds, providing you with Sharia-compliant investment returns, a diversified asset allocation in equity, property and income to match your risk profile, daily liquidity which is easily redeemable with no minimum investment period, no exit fees, no initial fees, and is managed according to a low-risk investment philosophy. Why don't you join the Oasis family for superior Sharia-compliant investments? Everything we do. Discover your hidden treasure. Oasis has just launched the first Sharia-compliant income fund in South Africa, providing you with Sharia-compliant investment income, attractive yields, daily liquidity and great asset diversification, which is easily redeemable with no minimum investment period, no exit fees, no initial fees, and is managed according to a low-risk investment philosophy. Everything we do is based on detailed and